All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Delegation Roundtable. I'm Ben here today with a very, very, very special guest who I would consider, he's pretty humble enough, he'll say it, I will, the greatest writer that's ever existed on the internet. I've been
Whoa.
devouring, yeah, been devouring his content for years across social media, blogs, and everything in between. I've loved every podcast episode I've ever listened that featured him. So super honored to have him on ours now to our Sphere Rocket audience. But without further ado, I would love to welcome Nicolas Cole to the show. Nick, thanks for coming on, man.
Wow. Yeah, thanks for the kind words. That's the most epic intro I think anyone's ever given. So, wow.
Uh,
Thank you.
well, it's easy to do when you're on here, man. And for those in our audience who, by chance, might let's say live under a rock, I say that, but when it comes to your stuff, tell us a little bit about who you are. Who's Nick?
My name's Nicolas Cole. I am a longtime internet writer. I started writing on the internet back in 2007 when I was 17 years old. I started with a gaming blog where I would write about World of Warcraft strategies. And since then, I've done everything I think you could possibly do writing on the internet. I, I think the thing that summarizes it most is I have successfully generated over $1 million in revenue across 8 different writing related business models. So I've done it with SaaS, I've done it with services, I've done it with consulting, I've done it with
Fascinating.
paid newsletters, I've done it with low ticket digital products, high ticket group coaching, cohort based courses, self publishing books. You name the business model, and I've done it. I think the only one that's left is fiction writing, and that is what
Okay.
I'm currently working on. Is I'm just taking all the same frameworks and applying it to writing novels, um, mostly because I love fiction, but also because I just want to keep going down the line and proving once you
Yeah.
understand how to write things that people consume, like you can apply it to any business model you want.
That's fascinating, and I want to get into that on the fiction piece too. Even back to the jump of this, right? With writing World of Warcraft, with the blogs, forums as a teenager. When did because I'm sure you started this, and keep me true here, but I'm sure you started that just out of your own interest, right? Probably a gamer a little bit, and started collaborating over the internet. When did the monetary aspect come in when you're like, oh, I could actually make money doing this. This is pretty fun. I enjoy doing it anyway. You were doing it anyway. Walk us through that. That's super interesting to me.
Yeah, I got introduced to the idea of monetizing writing on the internet at a very young age. 2007 was kind of right before blogging became
Mm.
a fairly like conventional career path. I think pre 2007, if you said I write a blog on the internet, most people would say that that's just code for you live in your parents' basement and you do nothing with your life.
Yeah.
And so like I was very early to this idea of writing on the internet as a career. And what got me started writing about something like gaming was I was a very competitive gamer. I was one of the highest ranked World of Warcraft players in the country as a teenager.
Wow, really? Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to compete. Like this was also 2 years before the whole esports wave took off.
Mm.
And I wanted to compete. And I found this website that was almost like a social blogging site for gamers. And the thing that I noticed about this site was that other really high ranked players all had popular blogs. And in having a popular blog, this was the thing that really made me realize how this whole game worked is it wasn't the best players that were getting sponsorships. It was the players with the biggest audiences.
Mm.
And so even as a teenager, I saw that and understood there is tremendous value in not just being good at something, but building an audience around the thing that you're good at and writing about it. Because in having an audience and in having a library of content, that's what attracts opportunities like sponsorships. Or eventually, the site reached out to me and was like, do you want to get paid to be a writer for our site? We want you to produce more content for us. So that was really the beginning of writing on the internet. And all of the things that I've done since then are really just more and more advanced versions of like that very basic idea, which is own a niche, write about something consistently, build an audience where you help people do something. Like with gaming, I was writing blogs, educating other gamers on how to play at a competitive level. I was just
Hmm.
I was just writing about the thing that I was doing. And now today I do the same thing with writing. Like I write about how I write on the internet. I write about how I build writing related businesses. And so yeah, that's really the idea. And it's one of those things that's so unbelievably simple. It's like if you just consistently dig into a niche and quote unquote provide value. I hate that phrase because it's so like vague and generalized, but
Yeah.
that is what it is, the larger that you build a library in a niche, the more opportunities you attract related to that topic.
That's amazing. And even as you were, so this was your own blog, I presume you had your own website and everything.
No, no, what was cool about this site is it was sort of like it was like a niche down version of a social platform. And
Okay.
so it
Interesting.
was not like my own website. It was like a subdomain. Like I had a blog on this larger gaming site. And so the site as a whole had readers. And the more that you would write, they had a leaderboard. Like it was a gamified because they were all gamers. So
Love
it was
it.
like a
Love it. Yeah.
gamified social platform. And the more I wrote, the more I rose up the leaderboard. And I eventually became, one of the biggest bloggers on that gaming site. And then, I basically just took that same ideology and I applied it to Quora. When I graduated from
Mm,
college, I became the number one most read writer on that entire platform out of
I
200
remember
million
that. Yeah.
users. I did the same thing on Medium. I was one of their highest paid columnists behind their paywall. Like it's just the same thing over and over again.
And, with doing it, really falling in love with the consistency, right? It's like falling in love with the game, not the result, or however that saying goes.
Yeah.
How, give our listeners and viewers insight into, again, I'm sure it's different within different niches and verticals, etc. World of Warcraft, and then I'll uh, keep progressing on our story here. How long did it take for you to get some serious traction? And maybe it was a little quick because you were such a good gamer yourself, but how long did that take to get some serious traction with, oh, I'm making money doing this?
It took about a year. And then on Quora, when I graduated from college, it took about a year. And then when I moved on to Medium, it took about a year.
Mm.
Like over and over again, every new business model I've applied these underlying skills to, I have found that it takes a minimum of a year when you pick a new platform or you pick a new topic or you pick a new business model. It takes about a year for you to figure out what game are you playing. Like writing gaming blogs was a different game than writing Quora answers, which was
Yeah.
different than writing on Medium, which was different than ghostwriting, which was different than running cohort-based courses, right? These are all like different mutations of the same underlying skills. And so whenever, I've mentored and coached over 15,000 writers in our different programs at
Wow.
this point, and I constantly remind people you can't just say you want all these outcomes and then you start writing about something and then 3 days later you go, well, how come I don't have a huge audience and how come I'm not making all this money? But it's going to take longer than 3 days. It's going to take longer than three
Yeah.
weeks. It's going to take longer than 3 months. You have to give yourself at least a year of consistent action in order to really get a baseline of how does this game work? What skills do I have? What skills do I need?
It's crazy you say that. Takes me back even to just some tutelage I've been lucky enough to have in my career, and I think you know this, but worked at ClickFunnels for a long, long time during just the meteoric rise of that company, and was the funnest time ever. And shout out Russell, but he used to always say, even just whether it was in a mastermind on stage or just to us internally, it's like if you made one video a day for a year, you would never have to worry about money again in your entire life. He's like, but so few people are actually willing to just ride it out and do it because they're enjoying it to see the results that it really actually takes time to breed, on the internet. And I think I'm gonna say his last name wrong too, so I apologize. Roast me in the chat or wherever. But I think it's Ryan Magan or Magan. I don't know if you've seen his ads now, but he's like, if you
Mm,
teach or if you treat content creation like a full-time job for 6 months, you'll never worry about money again. Um, which now with short form content, I'm sure I'm not an expert, but I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff to go down that rabbit hole. But with you and your writing, we'll come back to you on this. With the rise of short form content, what's your take on that? Because my brain goes back to all the Dan Kennedy I've studied, where it's like there can never be too much long form, right? If people aren't reading it all, it's because they're just not interesting enough or writing well enough. What's your take
Mhm.
on attention spans and how that's evolved since you've been on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you two different perspectives. One is as a meta principle, I am a big believer in prioritizing skill development over everything. I don't I don't like and I try very hard to fight against the impulse of blaming things that are outside of me. Like
Yeah, good for
oftentimes
you.
people
Yeah.
people get really discouraged where they go like, "Oh, this niche or this platform is saturated." Or short form is taking off and I don't want to do short form because XYZ. They come up with reasons not to take action by blaming things outside of themselves. I tend to be a very big believer in, and I'll tell you a like little side story that really taught me this, but I am a very big
Yeah.
believer in treating every different component of writing or content creation as just a different way of practicing the same underlying skills. So when I was in college and I was studying creative fiction writing, I will never forget we did this class where everyone in class sat down and we were going to write like a very short story. Like they were like, you have 20 minutes, write a little short story. But you had to write it using your non-dominant hand.
Oh, yikes.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And at first I was like, this is stupid. Why
My
why
handwriting
would I
sucks
ever
enough
do
anyway. Yeah, he's in my other
right?
head. Sorry.
Like and I'm right-handed, but I'm like grabbing it with my left hand. I can like barely put words together. But the thing that I noticed, and even though I only was able to write down, I don't know, maybe 20 words in 20 minutes, like it was brutal. But the thing that I noticed is that by using my non-dominant hand, I was forced to slow down to such a degree that I
Mm.
chose very different words than I would have chosen if I was using my dominant hand and just flying through. And I that actually taught me a really valuable lesson, which is the size of the container changes the way that you think. And so I
Hmm.
think oftentimes people ask, like, which is better, long form or short form? You're asking the wrong question. It's not that one is better than the other. It's that because they are different sized containers, they force you to think differently. If you only have 280 characters to say something, you're going to say that thing in a different way, right? But if you have 5,000 words to say something, you're going to say that thing in a different way.
Mm.
And so I just think of them all as like there's not one platform's better than the other. Short form's not better than long form. That's like the wrong way to think about it. I think about it more like I am able to practice my skill and all the same underlying skills in different sized containers or different mediums. Like me talking about it on a YouTube video is different than me writing a newsletter about it, which is different than me compressing it down into a tweet.
Mm. No doubt. I like that a lot. Um, that's a clip right there and a bar. But even if people, throughout my days have said, they want to get started, whether it's any type of content creation and what platform is the best for me. Where should I get started? That's what it's like.
Hmm.
Whatever you like the most, really, because that's what it's going to take to outlast that mundane period. Like you kind of set the bar at a year. I think that's a great timeline. In order to get where you want to go, you're going to have to outlast that rather boring period where you publish, you ship things, and it's crickets, right? It still
Hmm.
happens to me this day. Um, but doing it on the platforms whether you like being on video, you like talking on podcasts, you like writing, it's all really the same, right? Or at least, in terms of building a brand. Um, and within your story, Nick, graduating college, your, top rank on, I always say the I can't pronounce Q's that well. On Quora. Am I saying that
Yeah.
right? Should have went to speech therapy a long time ago. Here we are, in my 30s now. And then on Medium, oh, I think the light just went out in the studio. Hold on, I'll turn it back in a second as I get this question out. Um, what was really your first big business? You mentioned you scaled so many past seven figures with this method. Tell us about, um, you know, beyond, after Medium, and that could have been a seven-figure method as well. What was the first business you had to where you applied these underlying strategies?
My first business was a ghostwriting agency. So I was 26 years old, and I eventually left my full-time job. I was working as a copywriter downtown Chicago, and I had gotten really good at writing articles or answers on Quora and writing articles on Medium. And I basically realized I now know how to write things that other people want to read. And one of the ways that you can monetize that is by providing it as a service to another person. The way I like
Mhm.
thinking about skills is skills are things that you can double monetize because there's value in you building the skill for yourself. And then there's a secondary value in you renting that skill to another person. And so my first big business was ghostwriting for founders and executives, doing the same exact thing I was doing for myself for them.
Mm.
So I would say you should be writing thought leadership content on the internet. You should publish on Quora and Medium because in 2016 to 2019, those platforms had amazing
Oh
distribution. They
yeah.
don't anymore, but that was like the heyday. And I built that company to multiple seven figures a year in revenue. We had a whole team. We had writers, editors, a sales team. I ghost wrote for 300 plus different industry leaders, Silicon Valley
Wow.
founders, billionaires, New York Times bestsellers, like you name it. And that was an amazing, like I made so many mistakes in that business because I was in my like mid 20s and this was my first company and I like didn't really I knew a fraction of what I know today. But it was a really illuminating adventure that showed me yet another way that you can monetize writing. And the thing that I tell other writers is that if your goal is to make money the fastest, if that is your goal, nothing is faster than providing a service.
Oh yeah, no overhead too,
Building,
right? You can, yeah.
yeah, it's just straight to you, you know? Like, and I love digital products. I love paid newsletters. I love all these other business models, but the truth is those business models are dependent on an audience, they're dependent on traffic, they're dependent on other things. And it is significantly easier to go get one person to pay you $5,000 a month rather than go get, 500 people to pay you $50 a month.
Hmm. I love that. And you hit a really cool point within, you scaling this business to the heights that you did of having a team, right? Having writers, probably administrative help. And it goes into kind of, I guess, our whole theory that, you go far, you got to go together, right? It's not all done alone, even in the age of AI, which is something I really want to hit on with you. And you might be tired of answering those questions at this point, but I think it's a good topic for us to
No,
discuss.
they're great.
Yeah, but with utilizing, when scaling this business, and when did you hit that glass ceiling, hit that breaking point, crossing the chasm, if you will, that was like, I need help. I can't do everything alone. As good as I am, I have to have other people do stuff. And even though it might not be as good as I can write, or, Dan Martell says, whatever, 80% done is 100% awesome, right? And that gives you
Mhm.
ability to keep going. Walk us through, was it a pain point for you? I'm very curious.
Yeah, it happened at different stages with different things. So the first bottleneck we ran into in that business was, and this was pre-AI. There are things now that if I was running that business today, there would be different benefits and there would be different challenges. But in my ghostwriting agency in 2017, one of our biggest challenges was we would talk to clients on Zoom and we would record the call. And then we would work from the call transcript to produce the article. That was our
Mm.
process. And so when I would say, we ghostwrite, it's not really like we were putting words in people's mouths. We would interview them, we would record the call, and then we would just edit down the transcript to something that was well written.
Oh, very cool.
And and so one of the first bottlenecks that we ran into, because the technology didn't exist, like there was a time where we weren't even using Zoom. We were using like a call-in number. And there was no auto transcription software, and auto transcription software was really inaccurate. And so what we did is we found a company that had virtual assistants overseas, and we would take all of our recordings from our calls and we would send it to them, and then they would have a human being transcribe it, and then they
Wow.
would send it back to us. And
It's like in
that was
court
our
or something. Yeah.
no, literally. And that
Yeah.
was our single biggest cost. Even as our company grew, that was our single biggest cost. There, I think at our height, we were spending something like 15 or 20 grand a month on transcription services that now would just be essentially free.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. For the free version of Fathom or whatever.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
like that was when it was just me and my co-founder, you could say that was the first breaking point was,
Mm.
okay, we need help. So we went and found that solution. And then from there, each person we hired was just replacing different things that me and my business partner were doing. Like I could only ghostwrite so many pieces in a day. So if we wanted to handle more than 10 clients,
Yeah.
we need a writer other than just me. And then as you have more writers, it's like, well, my business partner can only talk to so many clients in a day. So we need account managers. And that's just the nature of scaling any business is like
Uh-huh.
you run into a problem, you max it out, and then eventually you need help. You need someone to come in.
Yeah. I always say hire when it hurts. And beyond that, did that lead you? I mean, it seems like that even still to this day could be a very thriving business. What led to any type of pivot that you made at that point?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I totally agree. 10 years ago,
Mm.
people said, "Oh, ghostwriting's a fad. Ghostwriting is unethical." Like all of these things. And one of our biggest training programs is our Premium Ghostwriting Academy. I've trained thousands of writers on
Yeah.
how to land clients as a ghostwriter and charge a premium. And I have seen so much demand for these services over the past 3 years that we actually recently launched a whole new ghostwriting agency vertical ourselves called Velocity. So now I'm just taking all the skills that I've learned over the past 10 years and then with my current business partners building a new email ghostwriting agency just because I think we're so much more equipped to be able to do it. The honest answer of what I ran into with the first business was we made so many mistakes and reinvested so much money back into the business to grow so quickly. Like for the way to summarize it is for 9 straight months, me and my business partner didn't take any additional money out of the business except for just the modest salaries that we were paying ourselves. Every single dollar we made last month got reinvested in
Mm.
hiring the next 2 full-time employees the next month. And we did that every month for 9 months straight. And eventually what happened was we got to this top, we've got a team of 23 full-time people and like 80 clients. And we got there very quickly, but I hadn't yet learned the lesson that every time the business doubles, it's basically a different business.
Yeah.
And you need you
Yeah.
need to you need to pause, you need to stop, you need to clean up what just changed. And we skipped that so many times in a row that by the time we got to where we maxed out, we had just made so many mistakes and it had been going on for so long that I was so burned out. I was working 12-hour days 7 days a week. Like I reached a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
And we scaled it back down. I continued ghostwriting for another year. The pandemic hit. And then I met my current business partner, and then I built other 7-figure businesses, and life goes on.
Mhm.
But that's just the nature of like being a serial entrepreneur.
No, no doubt. And you brushed over that, which is such an incredible feat to go on to just build other seven-figure businesses. It's no big deal. Tell us about those types of endeavors and the problems they were solving.
Yeah, so I took a year off in the pandemic. I basically only ghost wrote for, I don't know, 5 or 6 clients, just enough to pay the bills.
Mm.
And I really just took a year off. Like I worked myself into the ground building that first agency. My health suffered a lot. There was a point where I was so stressed that I ended up in the hospital with shingles. Like it,
Yikes.
it definitely took
Yeah.
took a took a toll. And so in the pandemic, I just took a year off. Went back, played World of Warcraft for a year. Just gave myself
Like a
a little bit of
PC,
grief.
where would you play?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, just on my computer and just
Mhm.
sat in my apartment and I was like, "Oh no, the pandemic. I can't leave my house, but like I'm happy as ever. This is like the
Yeah.
best thing in the world."
Uh,
And then I met my current business partner, Dickie, and I met 2 other guys. Their names are Christopher Lockhead and Eddie Yoon. And basically 2 different businesses presented themselves at the same time, like right around the beginning of 2021. Dickie had come up with an interesting writing challenge idea called Ship 30 for 30. That was basically like a group accountability cohort based writing program. And he was very small on Twitter at the time. and he wasn't really a writer. Like, he just kind of stumbled into this idea, and we randomly got connected, and I saw what he was building, and I was like, dude, if we team up, I've got a decade of writing frameworks that I could stuff into this, and I think we could scale this like crazy. And he took a chance on me. I took a chance on him. We went in 50-50, and we ended up building Ship 30 to multiple seven figures. It was the fastest growing writing challenge on the internet. It was like a smash.
Yeah,
And
it was huge.
it was a lot of, yeah, it was a ton of fun to build.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, with these two other guys, they're older, further along in business, much more accomplished than I am. And they wanted to start a paid newsletter talking about category design, like very advanced, high level marketing positioning strategies.
Okay.
And category design is like, how do you name
that was going to be my
category?
question. Sorry, you can probably read my face.
Yeah.
Didn't even to cut you off.
Yeah. It's like, how do you name your category? How do you summarize your differentiation?
Got it.
They had done consulting for publicly traded companies, like very advanced. It was cool. It was like I was getting a master's degree in positioning. And I started this paid newsletter with them. And within that first year, it was called Category Pirates. And it became one of the, I think it was top 5 paid business newsletters on Substack. And then on the back of it, yeah, it was a 6-figure paid newsletter. And then I came up with a really cool publishing flywheel where we would take all the newsletters and bundle them into books and self-publish the books on Amazon. That unlocked another 6 figures in revenue. And then on the back of that, we did some consulting. We had a consulting business where we would help venture-backed startups or publicly traded companies with their positioning. And the consulting business was like multiple 7 figures in revenue. We did huge cash deals, stock deals, all sorts of stuff. And yeah, all of a sudden I stumble into, a year later, 2022, I have these 2 multi-7-figure businesses, and I basically had to pick. And so I exited Category Pirates. They bought me out. I doubled down on Ship 30. We launched other ghostwriting programs, other paid newsletters, etc. And yeah, like the rest is history.
Dude, even on a tactical base, when it comes to scaling, which I'll say paid newsletters, but you've done that in multiple different facets, right? Whether it's a paywall behind Medium, I would argue that's fairly similar in terms of how it's consumed, how it's marketed. Maybe I could be a little bit wrong there, but even on the paid newsletter side, or even having a free newsletter for those the writers that we have within our audience. What are some tactics they could start to do that, again, I would argue it's kind of like a snowball rolling downhill, right? I'm sure it's still around like that year theory of you've got to really put in the organic work and lay the foundation there. But what are some tactics they can do to grow their newsletter?
I love this topic because I think newsletters are incredibly misunderstood. I mean, so many marketing channels are misunderstood, where I think because people think, well, anyone can post on social platforms, and so creating social content must be easy. Anyone can write a newsletter, and so writing newsletters should be easy. The reality is all of these games are very easy to learn and very hard to master. They are incredibly nuanced. And so with newsletters, and I could talk about this for 5 straight hours because we've learned so much, and I've built so many different newsletters. And with newsletters, there's really like 2 big ideas that are important to understand. The first is on the positioning side. The single biggest mistake that people make with a newsletter is they shoot themselves in the foot before they've even started. And so what they do is they either name their newsletter after themselves, and they're like, this is Cole's newsletter. The problem is that when you do that, you inherently just decided that the only people who are going to subscribe to your newsletter are the people who know who you are. And that's like you literally just lost the game before you even started, right?
Yeah.
Because people aren't, like, unless you're some huge celebrity or some person who has already a giant audience, people aren't interested in you because you're you. People are interested in topics, and then they're interested in who is the person that can fulfill on that topic. And so you should not name your newsletter after you. You should name your newsletter around a topic. That's the first mistake. The second mistake is when people think of topics, they pick their brain goes to the largest, what I like to call mega category topic. So they think, okay, I want to write about health and wellness. I want to write about technology. I want to write about business. The problem is that all of these are mega categories, meaning business is not a topic. Business is an umbrella, and inside that umbrella are 1,000 subtopics, right? And so it's a mistake to say, I want to write about a mega category, because when you start to, pull on that thread, you realize that you cannot effectively deliver value on every single subtopic within that thing. Like, take a lot of people say, I want to write about marketing. Okay, well, just unbundle marketing as a mega category. There's digital marketing, there's print marketing, there's analog marketing, there's guerrilla marketing, there's viral marketing, there's marketing per platform, there's ads, there's email. So do you really think that you're going to be the go-to person for every single one of those subtopics? Of course not. Of
Right.
course
Yeah.
not, right? And so the best thing that you can do on the positioning of your newsletter is not think in mega categories. You want to think in niche categories. You're like, I don't want to write about technology. I want to write about how to set up your first 10 low-code zaps in your business. I don't want to just write about, like, you have to get more specific on the subtopic or the sub niche or the subcategory that's all you do. It's like, if I was following someone, I don't want someone who's good at marketing generally. I'm like, oh, I want to fix the SEO of our business. I'm going to go look for someone who lives, breathes, and just obsesses over SEO. And so, like, that needs to be the thinking for the newsletter. And then your newsletter is really just in service of that thing that you've chosen.
And for point two, you made one. Those are incredible. I agree wholeheartedly with both of them. It's kind of back to the book, The Blue Ocean Strategy, of by doing that, you're doing a couple of different things. Most importantly, you're weeding out competition to where I'm sure there are marketing newsletters that, high profile. It's just a different game. Whereas you're starting from zero, you're able to identify exactly who your reader is because you have such a niche, subcultured topic that you're writing about. Am I correct in saying that?
Totally. And the more specific the niche or the subcategory, the less your credibility matters.
What do you mean by that? That's interesting.
So, do you ever it's 9 p.m. Do you ever scroll TikTok?
Yeah.
Or Instagram Reels or whatever?
Guilty.
Just like
Yeah.
brain dead, right? Okay.
Sure.
So we all do it. It happens.
Yeah. I hesitated. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
So I think what's really fascinating is if you pay attention to your consumption behavior on those platforms, you swipe, a video starts. The more specific the thing the person is talking about, the less you care whether they are some world-renowned expert or not.
Okay.
You instantly listen to them because of the specificity of what they're saying. So I'll give you a really basic example.
God, that's brilliant.
Let's say that I'm moving. I actually went through this a couple of years ago. Let's say I'm moving from Los Angeles to Miami. Okay. And I know I've got this big move coming up. And I've never moved across the country before, ever. And one night I'm scrolling on TikTok, and a TikTok starts, and some old guy that I've never met before, I have no idea who this person is. He is by no means the world-renowned expert. He's sitting in his truck and he goes, I just did a cross-country move from LA to Miami. Let me tell you everything that I wish I would have known. I am going to listen to that entire video, and I'm going to trust everything that person says. And it has nothing to do with them being an expert. It has to do with the specificity of the thing that they are saying to me. And so I feel like people conflate these things where they think, I need all this credibility. I need all of this. Like, I should be able to point to case studies or success stories or awards or these external validating trophies. And they think they need those things because they're thinking at the mega category level, which would be true. It's like Tony Robbins can go after a mega category of self-help because he's got 30 years of pattern recognition and
Sure.
awards and credibility,
Branch
right?
out.
But the more specific you get, the more that credibility doesn't matter. And that's why every person, you should start with the most specific thing that you could possibly think of to help someone with, because your credibility is irrelevant. What earns your credibility is just, I can help you set up your first filter in Gmail. Great.
Okay, that's perfect. Oh, let me turn these lights back on. Dude, this is crazy. This is happening. And we'll edit all this stuff too. It's like borderline embarrassing. I have no idea why that's happening. We have a blocker above that sensor too. Well, dude, that is brilliant. Okay, I've got 2 questions for you. These are both probably false beliefs. So almost treat me as like a student here, because if I'm thinking it, I know there are others that are thinking it.
Don't
too.
worry, it's not just you, it's everybody. I've answered these questions 10,000 times.
2 of them. All right. So first one, within creating this subcategory, which is 100% right. All these points have been brilliant. Would you run out of things to talk about? Like if you have a newsletter around like I was gonna say setting up the correct sound of a podcast or anything like that, there's only so much I feel like I could say, and I'm gonna sit there with a blinking cursor 6 months in, like I'm out of ideas. And even with I'm sure you've had millions of students that have like thought this, but what's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, things like this, I always come back to. We have a little mantra inside our company, which is whenever someone runs into a problem, we just say skill issue. So you're not running out of ideas because that's true. You're running out of ideas because you have a skill issue. You have a skill deficit. You haven't built the skill of generating ideas over and over and over and over and over again. And even with the most like basic understanding of that skill, let's walk through an example. So let's say I wanted to start a newsletter about how to self-publish nonfiction books on Amazon. Okay, so what are all the things that I could help someone with to do that thing? Well, I could help them ideate their book. I could help them title their book. I could help them write their book. I could help them edit their book. I could help them create AI systems to proofread their book. I could educate them on how Amazon works. I could help them find subcategories. I could help them do keyword research. I could help them write descriptions. I could help them like over and over and over and over. There is no short. And then within each one of those ideas, it's like, well, do you think that you might give different advice to a CEO who has no time but wants to publish a nonfiction book versus someone who wants to write a nonfiction book a month and be a successful indie author? Those are 2 different audiences. Okay, that's 2 different newsletters. So my point is that idea generation is a skill. And actually, the more specific you get, the more you realize you have more to say.
Interesting. And you feel like that's an opinion that stops people from even getting started in the first place? Because again, it's not a fact, just an opinion, right? And a false one too.
Yeah.
Of how you develop that skill is by writing, right?
Yeah. I mean, that is no different than any other faulty belief, or I wonder what's going to happen when, we call it solving problems you don't have yet. It's like, I'm afraid I'm going to run out of ideas. Okay, you're solving a problem called I'm afraid of this future thing I haven't run into yet.
Yeah, totally.
So why don't you just start, and then when you do feel like you've run out of ideas, then solve the problem of, so how do I come up with more ideas?
Perfect. And yeah, anyone who's watching, getting started is what the one step ahead, right? One chapter ahead. No writing pun intended there. The second, which is a giant overarching topic and probably a rabbit hole we could go down for hours and hours, and I know time is not permitting us to do that. What's your take? Like, how is AI impacting the writing content world? And I get this question all the time too, of like, how are VAs being impacted by AI, right? Like, why do I need an assistant? I could just have an AI assistant, which, at Sphere Rocket, we staff, hundreds of different jobs. But back to you within AI, is it replacing ghostwriting? Not replacing, but you know what I mean, without rambling on much further.
Yeah, I think that it is like every other I've gotten into debates with people about this. We'll see how the future plays out, but I think it's like every other piece of technology that has lowered the barrier to entry, which is when Photoshop came out, it didn't erase the design career. What it did is it made designers 10 times more efficient, and it made it 10 times easier for people to get into design. And then Canva, which was the low code, like code is the wrong word, but low code
Yeah,
version
low
of
code. Yeah.
Photoshop, right? The more consumer friendly version of Photoshop. What did that do? That just lowered the barrier to entry more. It didn't ruin graphic design. It just made it even easier for the average person to be able to create a flyer or a template or whatever. AI is no different with writing. It's just making everybody a baseline writer. That's all it is. And so when you lower the barrier to entry, two things happen. One is it allows many more people to participate in whatever that game is. Photoshop has allowed and Canva has allowed many more people to participate in creating visuals. Okay. Instagram has allowed many more people to participate in photography, right? So AI is just going to allow many more people to participate in writing. There's a lot of people who would have written zero things on the internet, and now
Hmm.
with AI, maybe they might write one thing a week
Yeah.
or one thing a day, right? So you lower the barrier to entry and you let a lot of people play that specific game. But then the
It's
opposite is also true,
which is what.
which is as you lower the barrier to entry, it makes the high performers, the top of that game, even more valuable.
Mm,
That's why everyone is like, "Oh, that's AI slop, AI slop, AI slop," right?
you can
That's
read
kind
it.
of,
You can smell it. Yeah.
I mean, but here's the thing: is that is no different than you scrolling through Instagram and seeing a bunch of Canva templates and going Canva slop, Canva slop, Canva slop. It's the same thing. It's just really low barrier to entry creation. And so that just means the people that actually build skill to use the technology, they just get more valuable. So I
Hmm.
don't see AI replacing any writers. I just see it as it creates more access, and as more people play the game, it up levels the game. It's like, well, yeah, you got to get better if you want to still perform highly in this vertical or with this skill set.
I couldn't agree more. We're kindred spirits when it comes to this. Um, and I mean, I've been giving a talk on this at a huge AI conference in a couple months, and I hope they don't boo me off the stage. But it's, and again, yes, it's here forever, and I believe in all the good in it, and I'm a huge advocate for any artificial intelligence, like add-on, replacement, whatever that you have. But the easiest way to predict the future is just to look back at the past, and you look at, in my opinion, but you look at every large tech advancement that's happened, like Photoshop, Canva. You can go back. I mean, the automobile was invented, like horses didn't die, they didn't go extinct, like how people, transported before. And a lot of unforeseen doors open, like when we just don't know about it yet. Like
Hmm.
it's not a pie, it's an ever growing garden. There's not a finite amount of jobs, numbers. Like it's going to create more jobs and create new jobs. And, you know, did the internet kill the mom and pop travel agency? Like maybe, right? Like I have no specific example, but maybe. But it also bred trillions of dollars in economic growth across the globe. And how many, because the internet, our jobs exist, you and I, right? Like they didn't know that when Netscape was around in the mid 90s, So I think that everything that AI has is going to be opening up more than we know about now, but we just don't know it yet. And it's like coming into money, right? It just magnifies the person that you are, right? If you're nice, you'll be happy. If you're mean, you'll be more mean. But kind of same thing as writers, it lowers the barrier for entry, increases the amount of AI slop, but it also helps elevate that top 1% that had that skill set and in fact make them more valuable. So I appreciate you saying that too. That's fascinating. And yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Um, get administrative tasks done quicker, right? In our world. Two final questions for you. You've mentioned, and with coming on this show, the current business you have now, you guys have a couple of staff members through Sphere Rocket. Can you tell us about
Mhm.
what they're doing and the impact it's made in your business?
Yeah, I mean, I will be the first to say I think the VAs that we've hired through Sphere Rocket are some of our most valuable team members because there are so many little things. The funny thing with AI, and we'll see how things change, et cetera, but technology, for all of our advancements, there are still very basic things that technology hasn't solved or solved well. Like one of my favorite examples is, have you ever tried to send a wire through your bank?
I have.
It's literally like eating glass.
It's like,
It's
why
it's
is this so
horrible.
hard? Yeah.
It's horrible, right?
Yeah.
Like very very basic things that have been around for 20, 30 plus years on the internet are still not at the level that they should or could be. And so as advanced and cool as I think AI is, I do think that it's going to be very challenging, and I think it's going to be a long time before you end up in a situation where AI can do end-to-end tasks perfectly with elements of subjectivity along the way across different platforms without needing any oversight. Like especially it's
Hmm.
when tasks involve multiple different platforms. Some platforms have APIs, some don't. Some APIs are good, some APIs aren't. Like there's inherently sometimes subjectivity in tasks. And so where we've found a lot of help by hiring VAs is by taking um, processes or series of tasks, especially tasks that move across multiple different platforms, and trying to isolate pieces and go, okay, this piece AI can do pretty well, but this next piece is actually something where human involvement is not only easier or more efficient, but it actually is somewhat required. And so when we work with, I mean, this is true with any team member, but when we work with VAs, we're trying to engineer systems where there are pieces that get automated with AI, but ultimately we're just trying to increase the leverage of the VA so
Yeah.
that they can be even more effective and they can be even more consistent. And I don't think it's an either or. I do think that it's a both and, where you want to arm team members with technology, not like
Yeah.
I either only use AI or I'm anti AI,
Mm, totally. Um, in wrapping up, Nick, 'cause I know your time's extremely valuable, and I appreciate you sacrificing that for us in our community. Tell us about, you mentioned, you're taking it to your next and maybe last vertical, who knows, but going a nonfiction route right now with your writing. What's that like? And then again, how can our audience, follow you and follow along for what you're up to right now?
You mean fiction?
What did I say? Yes, fiction. Sorry.
Oh,
I said
yeah,
nonfiction. Yeah.
nonfiction. I've been doing nonfiction for a decade.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes sense to me. It's not challenging to me anymore. Um, Fiction. So I wrote a book. It came out a couple of months ago called Writer Career Paths, and it was basically a forcing function for me to do two things. One, crystallize a lot of the lessons that I've learned monetizing writing in lots of different business models or different career paths. And then second is it was a great forcing function for me to research what are other career paths that I haven't had as much experience in, and what are other ways that writers monetize. And one of the most illuminating conclusions that I had in doing research for that book is that the vast majority of writers who produce large amounts of wealth in nonfiction do not get there by writing nonfiction. They get there by their nonfiction feeds some sort of larger business. So Alex Hormozy is a great example,
Yeah.
right?
Great
Like
point.
he sells a ton of books, but a huge reason as to why is because of his business. The reason every time Tony Robbins puts out a book, it's a New York Times bestseller, is because his business is the engine for his books. Even if you take like grand slam home run nonfiction books like Atomic Habits by James Clear, they sell millions of copies. But what's interesting is if you take a massive nonfiction author and you put him or her next to a massive fiction author, the fiction authors, the ones who hit home runs in fiction, are often 10 times larger. So James Clear might have made 30 million off of Atomic Habits. John Grisham has made 300 million off of legal thrillers. And it's been really fascinating for me
That's
to go
interesting.
through
Yeah.
and monetize. It's really interesting. And I think part of it is because entertainment is in many ways significantly larger than education, and nonfiction leans education and fiction leans entertainment. But it's been something that I can't stop thinking about, which is, I have large goals as a writer. My goal is to be, I like to put it as, I want to be one notch below a billionaire writer. My wife won't let me become a billionaire, but I think I'll settle
Yeah.
for 999 million,
Yeah. Not bad, right? Yeah.
And the only reason I set like an outrageous goal like that is because I believe it's possible, and so why not? Like let's just see how far we can go. And I have come full circle and really realized that all of the wealthiest writers in the world are fiction writers. John Grisham, Stephen
Hmm.
King, J.K. Rowling, James Patterson, like just go down the list. And that's
Yeah.
not to say you can't make writing or make money in other business models or other forms of writing.
Yeah.
I've generated tens of millions of dollars in all these other ways. But I am fascinated, and also I love fiction. It's what my college degree is in. But I'm fascinated by, as your goals get larger, one of the most important questions. I mean, you're from the era of Russell Brunson. I mean, Russell Brunson, I think, is one of the ones who would pound the table on this, which
Hmm.
is
Very
when
much.
you have a very high level skill set, you want to make sure that you're in the right vehicle for that skill set. And so as I've gone through different vehicles and my skills have up leveled, it's really brought me full circle and realized, well, actually the highest form vehicle for a writing skill set is fiction. It's the largest game you can play. And so I'm really fascinated by that. And now I'm starting to sink my teeth into that. And yeah, that's a game that I hope to play and hope to win at for the next few decades.
Yeah, well, if your past is any indicator, I think it's going to be pretty awesome for you. Any teasers you can give away that you're thinking on, working on right now, ideating, anything you can release? No pressure if not.
I've been really fascinated with, being a gamer, kind of full circle on
Yeah,
our conversation here. I discovered a few years ago this subcategory called game lit or lit RPG, which is basically where the main character like wakes up in a video game, alternate reality, gamer
love it.
as lot very very gamer focused.
Yeah.
And it is a very fast growing subcategory on Amazon. It's also a subcategory that I inherently understand because I literally grew up in gaming culture.
Hmm.
And um, it is also, what's really fascinating is it's starting to poke its head into the larger mega categories of fantasy and science fiction. And so I have been really fixated on this. I wrote my first novel and a handful of short stories on Amazon in the lit RPG genre last year. And I'm about to finish my next novel that's like a startup lit RPG where these students like go to school in order to build entrepreneurial skills to solve problems in the world. And it's like a training video game. And I've been building an immersive audiobook to go with it. So as you listen to the audiobook, it's not just narration, it's like sound effects and music and like a whole multimedia experience. And I'm really excited about it. I can't wait. I hope to put it out later this year, but I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I look forward to following that and the continued published success of, all the other books as well. For our audience that's with us, how can they learn more about whether it's Ship 30 or, your brand, anywhere to subscribe them? Where do we send them right now?
Yeah, anything, all my social platforms are Nicholas Cole 77, or you can go to my website, nicholascole.com, or just Google Nicholas Cole and you can go down the rabbit hole. I mean, we've
Yeah,
got a handful of different writing related businesses at this point, and I'm on all the social platforms. So if you just poke around for 5 seconds, you'll find it.
I love it, man. Again, I appreciate you. Thank you for, pouring into our community. I know they're going to love it and look forward to following your continued success, man. You're an inspiration.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the kind words.
Of course, man. See ya.